Story 1. I'm telling my parents the truth, even if it could shatter our family, although I know this is not an easy decision. I'm 21 years old and just recently got married to the love of my life. Everything seemed fine until I had a call with one of my siblings telling me the truth behind an issue with my wedding. For context, my husband and I got married very quickly and I am not American, so most of my family couldn't attend. Only my parents and my brother came in person, but the rest were going to watch it live on Facebook. Before the wedding even started, I was told by my mom that my grandparents were not able to watch, but that was about it. Turns out, a family member got very upset about my wedding, took my youngest aunt, his wife, and my cousins with him, and because my grandparents are not that tech-savvy and their other son was working at the time, they couldn't watch me get married. Admittedly, I was sad, but it didn't ruin my day at all. Why is this a big deal? That man that prevented my grandparents from watching me get married is the man that molested me and tried to abuse me for half of my life. The story is very long, but ever since he married into the family, he was paid to give math and science classes to every single one of the kids. Me, my brother, his kids, cousins and even friends, he's been involved with us all. However, something that I kept with me my entire life is that, ever since I was around 8 years old he has done horrible things to me. It all started with subtle touches, then it didn't get subtle at all, and as my family started to trust him, more time I would be left alone with him, and worse were the things he would do to me. Sometimes I had 3 or 4 hours of uninterrupted time with him. It got worse as time went by, when I was just about to turn 18 when he ripped a towel out of my body and left me naked. Thankfully he didn't have the time to do anything else because my grandparents got home. That was my last straw. Soon after COVID hit, and as I was finishing high school, I found a way to get to the US to study, and it's been like that for the past 2.5 years. After I knew what had happened, something in me broke. The person that abused me for so long didn't let my family see an important event in my life, and the terrible memories that I suppressed are pouring out. Because of him I'm afraid of driving, he taught me, while also touching me. Because of him I lock bathrooms, and because of him I used to drink myself to numbness and studied so much that I passed out, just to prevent or reduce our meetings for classes. My life was in shambles for so long that I had forgotten that it wasn't normal and now I can't hold it together anymore. This secret is now a ticking time bomb. My grandma has started to wonder if something like that happened to me, and seeing him get increasingly more violent towards my relationship and marriage has left her to ask questions. I know that because my aunt, who is like my second mom, told me about it. My fiancé, my siblings, my aunt, my therapist and some other people I have mustered up the courage to trust all believe me, but deep down I'm afraid my parents won't. We haven't had a good relationship and I became very aggressive to them as time went by because I absolutely blamed them for it, although it really wasn't their fault. I'm afraid, I'm worried and the guilt and hurt has become overwhelming to the point where I can't sleep or eat or do anything productive without breaking down. My grades are dropping too. But through it all my husband and my family are keeping me together. My parents come to visit on December 20th and I'm planning to tell them when they arrive, but a part of me is still terrified and just needed to vent. Story 2. Girlfriend had an affair with her boss but wants to stay together. I, male 28, have been with my girlfriend, 26, for 3 years. And we've been living together for almost the entire time. 2 months ago, she received a job offer that would essentially require us to move further away from my job and my brother. I asked her not to accept the job, but she thought it would be good for her career, so I eventually conceded and agreed to move with her. She informed her current job that she was leaving, and during that week, she came to me and said she wasn't sure if things would work out between us because I had been so unsupportive. She mentioned she was unhappy and that I didn't make her feel special. This news really shook me because I always envisioned a future with her. The thought of losing her over something seemingly trivial motivated me to take action. I immediately booked a fancy hotel room for us and took her out to show her how much I loved her. She agreed that we could take it day by day, so I did everything possible to make her believe in us again. I woke up early to cook breakfast, sent her sweet messages, and did everything I could think of to make her feel special. Later that week, I overheard her laughing on the phone with her boss, which gave me a weird feeling. I had always felt uncomfortable with how unprofessional she seemed with him, especially since they would hang out outside of work, in groups with coworkers. That night, while she was sleeping, I decided to check her phone not expecting to find anything but just to be sure. However, the texts I found between her and her boss were extremely suggestive. I woke her up and confronted her. She admitted that he had confessed his feelings for her and that she might have feelings for him. She said he had kissed her once when she told him she was leaving the company, but nothing had happened since. She also told me that he had been trying to convince her to leave me. We stayed up all night talking, and I told her that I could move on if she recommitted to our relationship and cut off all contact with him. The next day was her last day at her old job, and she told me she had the conversation with him and blocked him. The next 6 weeks were incredibly difficult for me, but I eventually started to feel better. However, there were a few inconsistencies in her story that bothered me. I wanted to move forward, get engaged, and recommit, but I needed to know the whole truth. So, I reached out to her boss. He told me that they had kissed 3 times, not just once, and the last time they kissed was when she told him she was going to try to reconcile with me, on her last day of work, after I found out. He also mentioned that they had talked a little the following week after she claimed she had blocked him and promised me she would never lie again. Now, I don't know what to do. I kicked her out of our apartment and said we couldn't live together anymore, but she keeps telling me she'll do anything to make it work between us. I told her I needed 2 weeks before we could talk again, but I don't know if I can ever get over this. Did she choose him over me? Was I the second option? What would have happened if I never found out? I don't know if I should move on or try to make it work. I still love her, and we have so much history together. We've gone on family vacations, and I had planned to propose within a few months. I'm so confused and feel alone. Are all women like this? Is there any chance of rebuilding trust? Story 3. My young neighbor's 4-year-old daughter is my husband's affair child. My husband has a 4-year-old daughter with a girl who is 16 years younger and was also our neighbor. This woman lived with her grandma and they barely made it. Her grandma was taking care of an old lady who died and she passed the 3 rooms luxurious flat to her. But they barely could afford to pay the bills. I knew my granddaughter had a crush on my husband, but I talked to him about my concerns and he said it's nothing, that he ignores it, and if she crosses the line he will tell her. We do well financially speaking. My husband buys a lot of old buildings that have deteriorated and then sells them after fixing them. The young woman who was 24 at the time said historical buildings are her passion and he took her plenty of times with him to visit the buildings. She fell pregnant, we never asked who the father is, but we both agreed to help her with money. They eventually moved and sold the flat. They moved 3 years ago. I got a phone call last week from the grandma who was crying when heard my voice and told me the little girl is actually my husband's daughter. They moved somewhere else because my husband actually is acting like a father on his rare visits, and when the girl started to talk they got afraid she would call him daddy. The old woman told me her granddaughter is feeling extremely guilty because I helped her the most but couldn't call me because she is afraid of me. I went to her workplace and when she saw me she ran away in the back. She works in a restaurant. All the money I was giving her for a year, she accepted them. Even though my husband was also giving her €1,500 per month without my knowledge, just for the child. I confronted my husband about it yesterday after he returned from his daily jogging and he didn't deny it. He said they had an affair and the child is his. He did the paternity test, he apologized. I feel so lost, hurt, betrayed. I always compare myself to that young woman. She was and is extremely beautiful, and my husband is also lean and tall and I gained weight. I feel like I want to dig a hole and jump in. I feel like a clown. Story 4. I am breaking up with my girlfriend due to past infidelity. My girlfriend, future ex-girlfriend, and I met at university when I was 18 years old. In my country you can start university at 17. There are 5 years of study for general degrees. Both of us studying the same degree, and we started our relationship formally when I was 20 years old and she was 22 years old. Our relationship had its ups and downs, but everything was fine. There were no problems and we were both quite clear about our limits regarding infidelity as a breaking point for a relationship. When I turned 22 I graduated from university and she graduated in the same year. Currently we both rent a small apartment while we save together to get a mortgage loan to be able to buy an apartment with installment payments. Well, both she and I are accountants, so a good part of our work can be done from home. In our room we each have our own computer where we connect to work remotely. At one point when she went to the bathroom I sat at her desk to hang out because I was temporarily left with nothing to do, and I saw that she had her WhatsApp web open with a message of friend of hers, who I know as her best friend. Her best friend is a woman too, about a conversation about something that happened years ago. Curiosity got the best of me. I began to check the conversation, and it turns out that almost 6 years ago she and her friend had an adventure to prove if they were lesbians or not, or if they like women too. I was absolutely stunned and didn't know what to do. I knew that she used to go out with her friend and spend long hours working because they used to be in a group during university days. But I didn't know anything about that. As far as I could read the conversation, it seems that the friend had a kind of attraction for my girlfriend because of what happened years ago. And now she has been thinking about it and thinks of her more than a friend, but that is beside the point. When my girlfriend came out of the bathroom I confronted her about it. First she tried to minimize it by saying that it was a one-night thing and that it was for self-discovery. I told her directly that I don't give a shit about her self-discovery, that this is an infidelity with all the letters and why the hell didn't she tell me? She responded that she regretted it and that in fact she didn't like it in the slightest, that it was just for experimentation. I was absolutely clear with her. For experimentation is the time of being single. If she wants to swallow the first organ of either a man or a woman that she finds, then she should do it while she is single. For some reason those words made her cry, or at least she seemed to pretend to cry well because I didn't see her shed any tears. She only managed to apologize and that it was a one-time thing, that she didn't enjoy it and that she wanted to close the topic but her friend from time to time she takes it out. I told her that her friend has nothing to do with it. She doesn't matter. I care about my girlfriend and the fact that she cheated on me. She keeps saying that it was not an infidelity, that it was an experiment, that there wasn't even penetration, that she wouldn't have cared if I also experimented with a man at that time. I simply told her that this idea is stupid and not to bring up that topic because it is irrelevant. I told her to please take her laptop and for the next day set up his desk somewhere else or go to her parents' house. The truth is that I am seriously thinking about ending the relationship because who knows what other things she may have done under the excuse that she was discovering herself. Infidelity is something that I do not forgive and even less so if it was at the beginning of the relationship. I was thinking of asking her to marry her when we have our apartment but now I just want her to go away from here. All this happened yesterday. Today she is at her parents' house asking me to think carefully and not throw 7 years of relationship overboard for something of one night. The truth is I don't know what to do. I want to break up with her but the apartment's lease expires in November. I have no problems with looking for another partner because I'm still young, but it hurts to know that I threw away 7 years for someone who her 20s wasn't sure about who she was. Forgiving her is not in my options, but having to live with an unfaithful woman for the rest of the month seems stressful to me. Even more so knowing that she could return from her parents' house at any moment. I don't know how to confront her and make her understand in a simple way that this is over, that she knew from the first day of our relationship my opinion on infidelity. Yes, we included on the topic of infidelity with someone of the same sex and she knew about it too. And yet she failed with that. Honestly don't know what words to say without sounding too aggressive, but at the same time I want to be clear enough to leave no room for doubt. Story 5. I didn't even make it a year before cheating on my wife and I'm deeply in love with the other woman. I was born, raised and went to college in a small town in Kansas. 6 years ago, after a stint living in Kansas City, I moved to the Bay Area, California for a job, change of scenery. I met my now wife in college. After graduating I lived by myself for a year and then she moved in with me. When I got the job in California it was just a given that she was coming with me. So now the year is 2018, we sell all of our stuff, cram what we can into the car along with our Labrador Retriever and make the drive 1,800 miles to the coast. Things are generally good. Like with any other relationship we had our issues. 2020 was rough at times with things being very locked down here in a small apartment, but we got through it. Finally after nearly a decade together I gave her a ring in 2021 and we eloped in Hawaii in 2022, Lahaina to be specific, which burnt to the ground shortly after. In mid-2023 I'm scrolling social media and realize an old friend that I had grown up with since grade school lives out here in the same area as me. Nobody from my hometown lives here. I have a couple buddies from college but nobody knows where I'm living, what I do currently, so I reach and strike up a casual conversation thinking it would be really cool to connect. Turns out she lives less than 10 minutes away with her husband and a set of twins. She is an attractive woman, 5'10" leggy blonde, pretty face, great body. But given this context I'm thinking about things in a completely harmless sense. She appears to have it all. The husband, the kids, single-family home in the Bay Area, which equates to a $1.5 million little ranch home. With chickens in the backyard. Travels overseas 3 times a year. We talk about double dating and catching up, but things kind of fizzle and it feels like one of those empty suggestions at getting together that will never happen. Fast forward a couple months, she reaches out of the blue saying she's interested in getting into my wife's line of work, real estate, and my wife's team is actively recruiting so it seems like it could be a good fit. I give her my wife's contact info and a couple weeks later the 3 of us meet at a Mexican spot for dinner. Things are pretty normal. We do a few tequila shots and have a great time. My wife loves her. After this she starts reaching out to me on a near daily basis. Like 6 days in a row at times I'll let the convo fizzle and she would initiate again the next day. Mostly just friendly but definitely some flirting involved. Stuff you would think was over the line but generally harmless, her telling me how good she looks in her swimsuit for example. Then it happens. My wife is going out of town for a close friend's bachelorette party and I make sure to casually slide it into our conversation that she will be gone the coming weekend. Friday rolls around and she texts me first thing in the morning, We talk about dinner the other night and I say it would be nice to see her again and she asks if I'd like to grab a drink. I say yes. When the evening rolls around I suggest a place to meet up and she makes excuses saying she's not dressed to go out and asks if we can just hang out in the pool-lodged communal area at my apartment. I tell her I'm sipping some tequila on my patio and she's welcome to come over. We talk late into the night about anything and everything. She eventually moves over to sit next to me and we touch and hold hands. I go in to kiss her and she pulls away. No big deal, I shrug it off. We continue the night and she eventually leaves. She then comes over again the following night and we kiss. There's some heavy petting but no clothes come off and she eventually leaves. We start texting and the conversation gets very sexual. Talking about what we want to do with to each other etc. She talks about coming back over but doesn't. From there it's basically game on. Our conversations get much more romantic. She confesses that she isn't in love with her husband anymore. He's an alcoholic and she separated from him a couple years before for 6 months before going back and feeling trapped. We start having sex regularly. In my car, in her car, at my apartment, hotel bar bathroom, pool changing room, out in the woods on a hike, you name it. It's amazing sex. We have a very strong chemistry and probably the taboo nature just makes it more exciting. I got caught. One day I carelessly left my laptop open and left to go watch football with some friends. My wife already has a reason to be suspicious of us. Gets into my iMessage and sees everything. Talk of us having sex, being in love, wishing we were together, dirty pictures, everything. She confronts her, cusses her out and threatens to tell her husband, but doesn't. She says it won't make her feel any better to fuck her whole life up. We go no contact. That lasts less than a week and then we're right back at it. Now I'm in this really dumb limbo where I'm honestly being a POS to both of them. Obviously towards my wife and I'm also telling my girlfriend that I plan to be with her when the timing is right even though I know that will never happen. I'm very much in love with her but don't want to be with someone who has kids, can't have any more, complications when having the twins, and is tied to this area where I won't be able to afford to own a home anytime soon. I still love my wife, but we have our own issues and I resent her for various reasons that I won't get into. In short, it feels like she completely quit trying in all aspects of life the moment we got married. Women have always been my vice if I'm being honest with myself. They like me for some reason and it's probably what I use as a distraction from my deeper issues. I had infidelity issues in the past and my wife was happy to move away from the KC area to get away from some of the mistakes I had made there, but nothing in the past was nearly this deep. So now I'm just enjoying things for now while they're fine waiting for this to inevitably completely blow up in my face in nuclear fashion. Story 6. My ex-wife came to greatly regret her choice of words. My wife of 22 years was busily packing a few of her most cherished items in plastic storage boxes, humming to herself like she was doing a casual spring cleaning. I in turn was standing in the doorway of our family room watching Amanda with tears flowing down my face. Despair and a sense of total powerlessness rippled through my soul knowing she was minutes away from the sudden abandonment of our life together. Part of me already hated her for the betrayal she had so unemotionally informed me just hours ago. But truthfully, part of me also hated myself for breaking down like I did and even now with me silently crying. I guess a real man like her lover, Mike Jericho, would have acted out in some other fashion. But he wasn't the one being betrayed, he was the man my wife was going to live with in California. Standing there, with Amanda seemingly oblivious of my presence, I ran the events of the past few months through my head trying to make sense of everything. It had started about 6 months prior with Amanda's employer, a national insurance company, hiring Jericho as an efficiency consultant. He supposedly was the best in restructuring companies by cutting waste and the usual other business-related bullshit. The contract Jericho had with Amanda's employer had him there for 6 to 9 months. Amanda, as a department head, was tasked to work closely with him to make the reorganization as smooth and quickly as possible. That's where things now obviously went to shit. Before this asshole Jericho showed up, my wife had never given me the slightest hint that she would ever be unfaithful. She was the type of wife that got semi-hurt if I casually looked at another woman while we were out in public. She would then make her usual comment about how I was the love of her life and couldn't begin to imagine being with another man. Jericho must truly be one amazing man, because it only took 2 months to get my wife to willingly spread her legs for him. This day had started as usual with me making reservations at Amanda's favorite restaurant, which I was going to surprise her with that evening. Instead, I got a call from her after lunch asking me to return home now. Of course, I rushed home to find her unnaturally calm sitting on the couch. My first thought was that something had happened to our kids. Sally, our oldest, was a nurse in New York City and Kevin was in the Army stationed at Fort Lewis, Washington. "Please sit down, Bruce," she said. "I have some difficult news to tell you." "Are the kids okay?" I asked immediately as I sat next to her. Yes, they're fine. It's about you and me and something that I never expected to happen. Like some surprise attack, Amanda admitted she was in love with another man and was leaving me that day. She also told me flat out it was Mike Jericho, someone she had mentioned only a few times in passing since he had arrived. I met the guy once when I had to pick Amanda up from work because her car was in the shop. Standing in the lobby watching Jericho interact with others, it took less than a minute to realize he was the type who believed his shit didn't stink. That the flashy clothes he was wearing, complete with the rings on his fingers and a gold Rolex on his wrist, along with his greasy charm and good looks, could get him anything he wanted. Never in a million years would believe my wife would fall for that shit. Amanda tried to explain it this way, that when she began working with Jericho she felt an instant connection that only got deeper as the days and weeks passed. That she was sorry for how this happened and that I had been a wonderful husband, but she knew it was time to start a new phase of her life. I can't believe you're seriously doing this, Amanda, I said, watching her secure the lids on the storage boxes. This is crazy. You really don't know Jericho, and while I accept that things between us may have gotten stale, but I can't believe you're going to throw away our life together like this, I said in a whimpering voice that offended me on many levels. Mike has completely explained his past to me, my wife replied back with a strange look I had never seen before. It took a second to realize the difference. For our entire marriage, when Amanda looked at me, there was a special soft smile and glint in her eyes that told me I was loved. That look of love had helped me through a bunch of difficult times, from the death of my father to my sister's cancer fight. Amanda now looked at me with a combination of cold indifference mixed with annoyance. In an afternoon of blows to my soul, I think this was the worst. I knew then that there was no hope. She was in some form of love with another man. Bruce, she said, please try to understand and be happy for me. Are you fucking serious, Amanda? I yelled back, my body shaking from the insane words coming out of her mouth. It was at that moment Amanda rushed over and grabbed both of my hands and pulled me close. I wasn't foolish enough to believe she had suddenly come to her senses, but then again I didn't pull away. Bruce, I've made my choice. You're going to have to let me go, she said, then releasing my hands and turning back to the 2 boxes she had packed. Amanda attempted to lift them herself off a table, a task that was difficult, but she got them to the floor and on the hand truck we kept for such tasks. Realizing that she was done with me as both a husband and person, I allowed her to maneuver the boxes out the front door on her own and over to her SUV. After popping the rear hatch, I saw 2 large travel cases in the back, which had to contain the clothes she was taking to start her new life. When Amanda explained the situation about her leaving with Jericho, she told me that in the coming divorce I would get the house and both cars. Amanda also added that she had told her lawyer not to pursue alimony. My stomach clenched because the way Amanda made those statements, it was like she was trying to pass those things off like a grand consolation prize. At that moment, my thoughts flashed to the old game shows that offered up a year's supply of rice-a-roni to loser contestants before they were booted off the stage. All Amanda wanted in the divorce was half of our joint savings, a sum that came to $65,000. She was leaving behind the 3,000 square foot home we had lived in for 15 years. A house that she had obsessed over, from everything to the foundation all the way up to the roof. Every item in the house, from the fixtures, to the paint on the walls, to the make of the furniture and appliances, were chosen by her. She loved that house in a way I often couldn't understand. Given all the time and effort she put into its creation and development, I couldn't help but wonder if Amanda had suffered a brain injury that had altered her personality. Bruce, along with the divorce papers, I've left contact information on the desk in your office in case something happens to the kids, she said, getting into her car. Tell the kids I'll be in touch in a few weeks. Screw you, Amanda, I said with anger building. I will not be relegated to some messenger between you and our kids. You're going to have to explain your actions to them personally. And I know our kids, they will not accept Jericho in their lives, and they might cut you out completely. That statement seemed to pierce the thick affair fog for a moment, crashing the beautiful delusion that had consumed her. Of course she quickly shook it off and got in her car and cranked it up. Just when I thought Amanda would just drive away, she rolled down her window. Bruce, she said, I'll have a driver return my car. You can keep it, give it to one of the kids, or sell it. I won't need it where I'm going. With that she rolled up the window, pulled out of the driveway and drove away. It was then that the neighbors learned what had just transpired, because I collapsed on the ground sobbing uncontrollably. Luckily for me, one of my oldest friends was a lawyer who could handle divorces. Robert Carter and I went back to our days playing high school football. He was the person I called a couple of hours after Amanda had driven off to begin her fairy tale come true. This took place after a few neighbors found me lying on the driveway and carried me back into the house. In the following days, Robert found Amanda's lawyer easy to work with since she had clearly laid out to him that this was to be an uncontested divorce. Amanda had already transferred the $65,000 in our joint savings to another account. And with her attorney, signed away any claim to alimony and the house, and her car, which was returned the following day. All I had to do was wait from 30 to 90 days for the divorce to make its way through the bureaucracy. Robert assured me though that my wait would more than likely be around the 1-month mark. I don't remember much of the following weeks. Luckily my boss and coworkers at the engineering firm I worked at knew what happened with my marriage and took care of the few unfinished assignments I had at the time. Once they were squared away, my boss even used a little-known company hardship policy to get me an extended leave of absence. My kids, Sally and Kevin, had thrown their full support behind me once they learned of what their mother had done. They both desperately wanted to return home, but the demands of their own adult lives made that impossible. As far as Amanda contacting them, you would think a mother who was suddenly leaving their father after more than 2 decades of marriage would have called her kids to try and explain. But when I reached the kids after talking with Robert, I found out they hadn't received any communication from their mother in several weeks. Goddamn, that Mike Jericho must have one magic dick. After talking with Robert and the kids, I pretty much shut down after that, refusing to leave the house or talk to anyone else. A few weeks later, some sense of self-awareness finally crept back the morning after Robert called to tell me it was time to sign the papers. Of course that would have required me to be presentable in public. So I stumbled into the master bathroom, where Amanda had taken a full month to decide on the decor and proper fixtures, and looked at myself in the mirror. For the first time ever I saw a thin, hollow-eyed stranger with a thick unkempt beard full of gray. Thinking back at that moment, I couldn't remember the last time I had a real meal. I lost at least 30 pounds since Amanda left and honestly looked so close to death it scared me. I became so mad then at how I had been used and betrayed I did something totally out of character for me. I punched the mirror with my fist. The glass shattered all over the sink. My right hand was badly cut with blood going everywhere. It took a visit to the emergency room and a few stitches to finally clear my head. I still had enough time afterwards to get cleaned up and go to Robert's office. Robert looked on with some concern as I signed the divorce papers in his firm's conference room. Who would have thought that a hardened divorce attorney who had gone through his own marital nightmare could still have empathy for a stupid client who still loved his errant wife? "Well, Bruce, you are officially divorced," Robert said in a way that was supposed to bring me some relief. "Yay me," I said with spite. "Bruce," he said, standing up, bringing an end to our meeting, "I know this sucks, but I've got to say you came away from this divorce mostly unscathed. Losing just $65,000 in the settlement, given your shared wealth, is a win in anyone's book. With this state's divorce laws, I've known cheating wives that have taken almost everything from their former husbands." I stayed silent, taking no comfort in Robert's words as I stood up to shake his hand and leave. It was then that I caught sight of the pretty paralegal entering the room, a blonde somewhere in her 20s looking at me visibly overwhelmed with pity. A more dynamic and smarter version of me probably could have milked her emotions for a rebound pity fuck. But in truth, that talent for me never existed. I was clearly no Mike Jericho. Having Jericho take my wife and live rent-free in my head was almost too much to bear. I walked out to my car wondering just what in the hell I would do now. My wife and kids held all the meaning in my life. The kids were grown and out on their own, so Amanda had become my purpose. I fucking cried after getting in the car, totally oblivious if anyone saw me break down. At some point, I guess a self-preservation instinct kicked in and I regained my composure. It was the last time I cried over Amanda. A couple of weeks later, I'm back at work trying to rebuild my life. I think the worst thing was the looks that the others gave me. There were several variations. I was mostly looked at with deep pity. But there were a few looks of suspicion, with some whispering there had to be a reason why Amanda threw away what on the surface looked like a perfect marriage. The real hell for me was when I returned to the house we shared. Amanda's ghost was everywhere, given all the time and effort she had done to create what for her was the perfect home. It was so overwhelming I had dreams each night of her returning to me begging for forgiveness. It was obvious what my next move would be. Just a few days later, a moving van rented by a used furniture dealer backed into the driveway. I sold him, at a bargain price, just to spite Amanda's metaphorical ghost, almost every item in the house that wasn't bolted down. When he and his workers left, there was only a bed for me, the large screen television, the basic kitchen appliances, a couch, and my recliner. The house was so empty, any sound echoed through it like a cave. I wasn't done yet. Even when the kids were living with us, Amanda's creation was insanely too large for a family of 4. I had no intention of living in it alone any longer than I had to. I called a real estate agent the next day. A few weeks later, I found a nice patio home for sale and snapped it up immediately. The big house was also listed at a bargain price and bought by a family with 4 young kids. Seeing the wonder in the eyes of the mom and dad as they walked through the empty rooms of their new home brought me my first joy in months. A little over 4 months had passed since Amanda destroyed my world, and I was developing a new normal for my life. Especially heartening was that both Sally and Kevin had in no uncertain terms cut their mother out of their lives. Apparently Amanda and Jericho went on a 2-week-long cruise after arriving in California, and she didn't try to contact the kids until well after it was over. It was a little after the 6-month point of Amanda leaving that I got a phone call from an unknown number. It was late in the day and I had just cooked a frozen pizza and popped the top on a beer when the phone buzzed. I declined the call and went back to the movie I was watching. At some point it occurred to me to look up the area code, and I laughed when I learned it was the one from the San Francisco area. I figured it was probably from a telemarketer, but I found it comforting how much I didn't care one way or the other if it was Amanda trying to make contact. It was the 8th month mark when everything blew up. I got a call from Amanda's sister, correctly named Karen because she was one, informing me that Amanda had tried to contact me. I instantly thought back to the unknown call from the San Francisco area. "Well, Karen," I said, "I'll take your word for it, but I haven't received any call from her. And frankly, our marriage ended on really bad terms, so I don't have any desire to talk with her. Plus, according to your sister's own words, Mike Jericho is her true soulmate. If it involves the kids, whatever relationship she can rebuild with them is on her. Not only will I not help my ex-wife with anything, I really don't know if I would piss on Amanda if I saw her on fire." Karen and I only tolerated each other at the best of times, so not surprisingly she hung up without saying another word. Though, I couldn't help but ponder what might have gone wrong between Amanda and Jericho. If Amanda had run headfirst into some form of reality with her lover, she was going to be in a world of trouble for someone to save her. My former father-in-law and mother-in-law were dead, and Amanda's sister and her husband were taking care of his aging parents. And even if Sally and Kevin were speaking to their mother, neither had any way for her to live with them. Oh well, I thought to myself as I took a sip of my beer, Amanda should have $65,000 to cushion any return to the real world. I did realize that I hadn't mentioned to Karen that I had sold the house and everything in it. It was a month later when the final shoe dropped. I was sitting in the office I shared with another engineer when the phone on my desk rang. "Hello, this is Bruce Evans. Can I help you?" I said, not paying attention to the number on the screen. "Yes, Mr. Evans," a female said. "I'm Dr. Sylvia Altman calling from Sacramento Regional Hospital, and I need to inform you that your wife, Amanda Evans, is my patient. She was in a car accident a couple of weeks ago and has just regained consciousness. Her Illinois driver's license records have you listed as her next of kin." Needless to say, Dr. Altman was taken back when I chuckled. "Yeah, Dr. Altman, we've been divorced for about 8 months. My ex-wife should have updated her emergency contact information. She's in a relationship with a man named Mike Jericho. He's the one you should contact." "That's just it," Dr. Altman sighed. With Ms. Evans unconscious, the police ran the license plate on the car and contacted Mr. Jericho. He has disavowed any responsibility for Ms. Evans and has stated they were not in a long-term, committed relationship. "Oh wow, I don't know what to tell you, doctor. As I stated, she and I are divorced, and the breakup of our marriage for me was unexpected and brutal. I really don't see how I can be of help to Amanda. Not to get petty, but she burned our bridges thoroughly, and the last thing she said to me was her certainty that she and Jericho were meant for each other." "Yes," Dr. Altman began. "Mr. Jericho has gone as far as to have his lawyer make it clear to the hospital that he wants no further contact from Ms. Evans. Dr. Altman, Amanda has money. She got $65,000 out of the divorce." I responded, now knowing where this was going. "Miss Evans says that money is gone and that she doesn't have any medical insurance. Mr. Evans, your ex-wife has repeatedly asked about you and has some idea you'll help her." "I'll be on the first flight I can get," I said to the doctor, not believing the words coming out of my mouth. "Do you want to speak with Miss Evans?" the doctor asked. "She still has a long recovery ahead of her, but your ex-wife wants to speak with you," she said, obviously relieved that someone would come to her injured patient. "No," I replied. "I need to speak with my lawyer before talking to her." Dr. Altman didn't push the point, and I believed she fully understood the nature of how our relationship ended. We talked for several more minutes, getting some of the details about how the car wreck happened. What I began to understand was that Jericho and her were having a fight, with Amanda fleeing his residence in one of his cars. My ex-wife was never a good driver, and being in control of some high-end vehicle on unfamiliar roads in bad weather explained everything to me. What Dr. Altman only alluded to was that after examining Amanda, she had evidence of physical abuse on the part of Jericho against her. After talking with my lawyer, I got a red-eye flight to Sacramento and arrived at the hospital 8 hours later after a long layover in Dallas. It was early morning when I met with Dr. Altman. I wanted to talk with her and fully explain my position before seeing Amanda. The doctor wasn't happy with what I told her, but didn't stop me from proceeding since Amanda had done nothing but ask for me since becoming conscious. I walked into Amanda's room to see her awake and sitting up. Her right arm was heavily bandaged and it was obvious she had suffered numerous cuts and lacerations. I also noticed the broken nose and black eyes but didn't really know if that was from Jericho or the car accident. When she saw me it was immediately clear the Jericho delusion was broken. Looking at me she had that soft smile and twinkle in her eyes that said I was the love of her life. All I could think was, oh damn. I knew you would come save me, Amanda said before breaking down in uncontrolled sobs. I've been such an ungrateful fool, she blurted out between howls of what could have been either shame or relief that I had arrived. Amanda's nurse showed up then and wanted to administer a sedative but was waved away. Several minutes later Amanda had regained some control of her emotions. That's when she noticed I was still just standing inside her room, that I had neither walked over to her bedside nor was showing any emotion at seeing her. Please come here, Bruce, she said, starting to have an inkling I wasn't going to be her shining white knight. I know what I did was unforgivable, that I threw our life and family away for a man that began abusing me just a few weeks after I left with him. She finished, still looking for some reaction from me. Tell me everything that happened, Amanda, I said coldly, grabbing a chair near the foot of her hospital bed and taking a seat. I listened as Amanda began telling her story of how Jericho had manipulated her into believing her life had been wasted. That Jericho had used his charm to delude her into wanting to start a new and wonderful life with him. How many times did you two fuck before the day you packed up and left with him? I asked. Bruce, please, I don't want to talk about that, Amanda said quietly and looked away. Answer the question, I said in a tone of voice that must have scared her. We started having sex about a month after we began working together. She answered, obviously ashamed. When did you first get a hint that you had made a mistake? That Jericho wasn't the soulmate you said he was while sitting on our couch at home? Amanda started crying again, but answered the question. He took me on a cruise to the South Pacific just a few days after arriving at his home. A few days into the trip he became very controlling, warning me not to embarrass him around others on the ship. He compared me to other women and told me many times that I wasn't equal to them. That he was doing me a favor by being with me. What was the deal with crashing his car? Amanda looked down for several seconds, remaining quiet before speaking. About 3 months after returning to his house he started beating me. It was then I realized how badly I had been deluded, that I had made a huge mistake. I wanted to call you and ask if I could come home but Mike had long since taken my cell phone. If I wanted to make a call I had to ask to use his. Then came a day when he left his phone on a table while talking to one of his equally strange friends. I took my chance and called you. Your phone rang a few times then went to voicemail. I was devastated and wanted to try again, but Mike walked back inside. He knew I had tried something and beat me so badly I had to be taken to another one of his friends who was a doctor. He treated me without reporting the abuse. This doctor and Mike had a huge laugh over my black eyes and when we returned to his place, he raped me. Amanda broke down again. I had to give her credit, she was coming clean. After recovering she continued her story. Mike left me alone in the house for several days. He said I was an embarrassment and that he didn't want to be seen with me. Since I couldn't reach you or the kids, I gathered enough courage to steal one of his cars and head east. I had this blind desire to return home where I was going to beg you to take me back. Somewhere I went off the road near Sacramento and was unconscious for several days. What about Jericho? What did he do when he found you gone? The car's registration led to him and when informed of my condition he didn't want anything to do with me. The car I wrecked was just written off. Just a few days before the cruise he convinced me to transfer my money to him for safekeeping. So I guess my money went to paying off the wreck. We just looked at each other in silence for several minutes. Some small part of me wanted to comfort her. Hell, that sliver of caring wanted me to grab her and take her home. But the main problem was that there was no home anymore, and more importantly, I couldn't forget nor forgive the cold indifference shown the day she left. There was no way in hell I could ever trust Amanda again. I really couldn't trust anything she had said or done during our entire marriage. What do you want me to do about all of this, Amanda? I finally say, wondering what she would say. Amanda started crying again, and I honestly believe they were true tears of regret and sadness. I was sure it wasn't some emotional meltdown lamenting the disastrous end to a romantic gambit. I felt bad for her because she must have felt utterly alone. Bruce, Amanda said, gathering her courage. I want to go home. I want to sleep in our bed, wake up the next morning beside you and work the rest of my life to make up for what I have done to us, and especially you. Amanda, there's no easy way to say this, Because what you did to us was a nightmare. But the home you and I built is gone. I sold everything to recover some of my self-respect. Your ghost was everywhere in that house. I couldn't live there anymore with everything reminding me of you. It hurt too much. I bought a small home on the other side of town. I live by myself and have come to like that way of life." Despite the roller coaster of emotions in that room, Amanda was stunned into silence. I sensed a similar level of overwhelming disbelief from her that I felt when she suddenly informed me of her affair and that she was leaving me. "Can we start again in your new place?" Amanda asked. "I can't imagine not having you in my life." She finished, leaving me amazed she could utter those words with a straight face. After Amanda made her appeal to come home and start again, I looked at her with an indifference I would have never imagined possible 1 year ago. Back then I believed our lives were irrevocably intertwined, so much that I would have used the naive word soulmate to describe how I felt. But in the space of a few months she threw that all away. She even cruelly broke with our 2 kids with only a vague statement to me about contacting them later to explain. Her actions were so short-sighted, selfish and narcissistic it was impossible for me to even consider accepting her back in my life. The injury she had inflicted on me was just too grave. Our lives were definitely once intertwined, but now I only saw dead wood that needed to be cut out of my life. I searched for anything to say to her request. It was her last words to me months earlier that popped into my head. "Amanda, you made your choice and I let you go. Now's the time for you to do the same with me." I replied, feeling a sudden sense of relief. My ex-wife started to say something but must have remembered those words that I had just echoed back to her. The look on Amanda's face was one of stark terror. Her hope of rescue by me was destroyed, and now my ex-wife realized she was not only completely alone but penniless. "I'm leaving you a check for $10,000, I said, standing up to leave. "My lawyer recommended against this since you signed away any claim to the house or alimony. So consider it a gift. It's a little cash to restart your life. How you go about that is up to you. Whether or not the kids let you back into their lives is up to them." Of course, Amanda broke down into tears again, and while it was cold-blooded, I took that moment to walk out, not saying another word. I dropped off legal paperwork with the hospital saying that I, like Jericho, did not want anything more to do with the former Amanda Evans. A few hours later I caught a flight home with a completely clear conscience. On the flight home it occurred to me that even after the divorce I had let Amanda's choices restrict my own options in life. Seeing Amanda in that hospital room with her admitting the monumental mistake she had made with Jericho had restored a good chunk of my soul. Along with that was seeing Amanda's face when she realized I wasn't there to rescue her, that whatever future she had didn't include me. This new feeling of vindication was liberating but also came with a curious burden. I had been living among the pieces of our broken marriage. It was on me to sweep away the shattered glass that was all those past commitments and fond memories. It was time for me to begin a new life. Story 7. AITA for confronting my mom about cheating on my dad and then feeling bad about it. Me, F12, and my mother, F37, have always been very close. I could tell her everything and she would not judge me. I never really liked my dad because he always made me cry and made me feel unworthy. As my exams were starting soon, I thought I'll see the timetable once. My mom wasn't home, so I decided to open WhatsApp, which was also connected to her. I went there and I scrolled a little just to find that she had sent a picture of her in a short red dress which she only shared with me and my sister. I never really interfered in her personal matters, but I saw it and my heart shattered. I knew she has been talking to someone secretly but still decided to not think about it as she usually talks with her cousins. I know how she would talk in her normal tone with that guy, but she usually never did that. She also deleted messages he sent to her, and that's when I got a little suspicious. When I saw that she was actually cheating on my dad with his colleague, lied about my dad and filed a police complaint which made us in a very bad financial situation for a year or two, my heart just couldn't believe it. How could she cheat on my dad knowing he struggled with anxiety? Not to mention she cheated on my dad before with her own teacher. My mom went to college because she couldn't complete it because she was married early, and my paternal side was extremely toxic and believed women shouldn't study and stay home and work. I knew she had been chatting with her teacher but ignored it as I thought she worked, but no. My dad eventually got suspicious and saw all the deleted chats. He took screenshots of them and I read them. I just couldn't believe it. I thought they must be AI generated, not to mention I was 11. I went to a competition that same day when I saw the photos and I couldn't stop thinking about it. I decided to just stay quiet because I did not want the precious time with me and her to be ruined. But I finally decided to confront her after 2 days. She was talking with him and I asked her multiple times but she didn't answer. She told me that she was talking to her friend and was talking about some kind of a beauty shop. About to cry, and I finally asked my mom, "Why did you send that picture to him?" while I was having a mental breakdown. She asked me multiple times which photo I've been talking about, and I told her everything while I was sobbing. I told her how much I hated her after this and how I completely lost trust. I told about how much I hated that guy even before all of this because of what he did to our dad. I was so angry and I swore at her because I just couldn't believe it. She later admitted it and told me that she was really sorry for it. I told her that I will never be with her again and I hated her. She just kept saying that I was her life and I couldn't leave her. I told her, "Why didn't you imagine how your daughter will feel after she finds out that you have been cheating?" I told her how sorry I felt for my dad, because he was struggling with anxiety and depression. I took a shower still thinking about it. I just acted normal with my family because they did not know. I completely avoided talking to her and she seemed to be really sorry. Her face was all red and she just silently cried about it. I felt so bad for her that I started normally talking to her the next day and completely forgot about it. I want to tell my dad about it, but I'm so confused right now. What should I do? Story 8. I broke up with my girlfriend after cheating on me 5 times. I, M18, had this girlfriend, F18, for 1 year and 2 months. To make things easier, let's just call her by the name of Chi. So Chi and I are something you would call high school sweethearts. As a little bit of background, during my high school I had a pretty good reputation. I was the president of the highest organization in the school, I had the highest grades, and I have a good background, family, and my relationship with friends and teachers. Chi, on the other hand, transferred to 11th grade while I'm in 12th grade. She is this cheerful type of girl, but has a bad relationship with her family, a broken family, with her mom leaving her and her father and eventually ending up with another guy. She isn't really the best at academics, but she works hard and is eager to learn. Our encounter started when she transferred to the school. We rounded up a school year apart but on the same strand and specialization. She caught the attention of my friend when she was reciting during their lesson, with my friend commenting how we are alike. At first I didn't really pay it any attention and just continued what I'm doing. However, as a new student in the school, she piqued my interest. She then began approaching me and asking me for an autograph and saying how she idolizes me at school. She would approach me cheerfully and ask for my autograph every day, so naturally she caught my attention. We sort of got into conversations, having to know each other, and we became close with each other. I started developing feelings for her but was uncertain with myself at that time. I eventually decided, or at least tried, to stop my feelings after knowing she had a boyfriend at the time. However, she would still continue to be with me and be so close to me that people actually started suspecting that there was something going on between us. I paid it no mind and just considered everything as a friendly type of relationship. There was one time when we stayed at school until evening to organize for an upcoming event when she decided to stay and wait for me. When the preparations ended, we got into a deep conversation before going home. There she opened up about her family problem, basically venting about her whole situation, to which as a friend, I offered her a shoulder to lie on. I already had a suppressed feeling for her back then, so knowing her even more was more than welcome for me, but that's just it. I didn't really take advantage of the situation and just listened to her talk. I guess it was this time that I really had that feeling of wanting to be with her at her hard times. There is just something about wanting to be by her side after seeing the opposite of her usually cheerful smiles. I guess that day was very important, as it was the day I wanted to know more about her. We continued our days as usual. However, as days went on, we got more and more closer than usual. There are even days when friends would question my relationship with her and I will just dismiss it as we're really just friends. She eventually vented to me about how she broke up with her boyfriend and wanting to have someone stay by her side until she heals again. I actually told her that she can share that burden with me, and if she wanted to, I can be someone she can rely on. It was basically a hidden confession of mine, since I'm the type who likes to hide feelings behind words, but I guess she didn't catch that one. We still continued our days as usual. Months passed and we grew closer and closer to the point that even I can no longer deny that I already developed my feelings for her. I waited for Christmas and New Year. 2 chances and I blew it off, ha ha ha. I eventually just decided to keep it to myself and have these unrequited feelings. That was until January of last year that while we are talking through phone, we eventually get into the topic of who our crushes are. I tried to avoid the conversation until she said that she likes me. Smiling from ear to ear, I didn't speak for a few seconds till she says that, well, she at least need a reply. I reciprocated her feelings and admitted that I had feelings too. We then decided to meet up and talk about each other. Now, it isn't a we admitted our feelings so we started dating type of situation. There are courtships and getting to know each other, and we only got together till the March of the same year, and it was the happiest day of my life. We did all sorts of things a young couple would do. We were passionate with each other and we have a pretty strong relationship. Our first challenge was when we actually made our relationship public. I got so many questions about us, and I heard many feedbacks, both positive and negative. Many are concerned about me and how I might be careless with my studies now that I have a relationship to focus on, typical comments when entering a relationship in high school. Many are also saying how they never really expected me to be with her considering our conflicting backgrounds and my high position in the school, etc. Heck, even teachers were involved with our relationship. I just brushed it off and said that I do truly love her and that I really wanted to be with her and that it is a decision I made for myself. They said that though they don't oppose my decision, I should still be careful not to get caught up with this relationship. We got through many of these challenges together, and even after months, our relationship only got stronger. As time goes on, we have encountered yet another challenge. I will be away for college in Chile, and I will eventually engage in a long-distance relationship. We prepared for months. We made promises, assurances with each other saying I will wait for her in college and we will go through college together. We considered many things, and sufficient to say we really got ourselves ready to face the whole thing. She was assuring. She was really passionate about it that I can't help but feel that things are just going to be all right. However, 5 months passed by and I stumbled upon something in her alternative Facebook account. She recently gave it to me. There I discovered that she has been in contact and having flirtatious conversations with her ex-boyfriend for 3 months into our relationship. She says how we are actually just acting couples and how she still wanted him to come back. The conversation ended with them actually cutting ties with each other after 3 months of our relationship. I was speechless. It's like the sky just fell down on me. I felt heavy, I felt betrayed. I asked her to meet up and confronted her about it. She cried saying she's so sorry and how that was in the past and how she loved me now more than anything and how she can't lose me. I didn't know what to feel. It's like all these emotions just got bottled up in my heart and got all clogged up that I don't even know how to feel anymore. I decided to tell her to give me more time to think and that I was really hurt with the whole situation. She says that she'll do anything to win my trust back. Oh, how I wish I just ended it there and then. It was cheating and I should have never tolerated it, but here we are. She begged me every day how she will never make the same mistake again and how she will become a better person if I just give her another chance. As cliché as it might be, I did believe in second chances, so I gave her. It took weeks for me to go back the way I was, but I can't deny that what she did left a deep wound in my heart. I decided to forgive her and that I really hope she can be the better person she told me to be. A month has passed and it is time for me to leave the town and go to the city to enter university. Our days were full of us just chatting about how we love each other and how we missed each other. Occasionally I would go back for a few days and we would meet up. Our plans were still being put in action and we are still having a strong relationship. It is not totally avoidable, but we eventually get into arguments once in a while. But even so, even with the new environment I was in with meeting new people, I remained faithful and loyal to her. However, no matter how strong your feelings are, and no matter how loyal and loving you are, things will go wrong. The next parts will just be the instances of cheating and micro-cheating my ex-girlfriend did. The first one, second instance she micro-cheated was when she brought one of her guy friend home for lunch. A close friend of hers told me how they saw she and that guy walking together going to her home for lunch after school. Take note that this guy was not his ex. It was a different guy. I asked this friend of hers to just observe them for the time being because I didn't want to jump into conclusions. It was only when their teacher contacted me about how they see her with the same guy almost every day during lunch and asked if we are still okay. I said that I will look into it and thanked her for watching her out for me. I confronted her about it as she argued that there was nothing wrong with it since she was just helping this guy friend out. I said that it was wrong in so many ways. She can't just bring a guy home every day and expect nothing wrong. I asked her if I did the same, how would she feel? She then eventually told me that she will stop interacting altogether with the guy, and she says that she'll just stop interacting with anyone else altogether since I didn't want to. She says that she's worried about what I said. What if I also bring a girl home for lunch? And made me promise not to talk to anyone else in school as she's worried. Really unreasonable thing to do, especially how she was the one who did it. It was a long argument, but I eventually forgave her. Now take note that this "you can't interact with other people" rule will still be in effect throughout my college days, which is unreasonable as it made my studying and social life much worse. But I still agreed to it if it means she won't do what she did anymore. We got into a fight again, which led us to another instance of cheating. Hurted by the first one and now the second one, I decided to think things through again after our fight. I said that I needed time because I was so hurt and that I needed space to think about things. She would beg me for days until I eventually gave up and just forgave her. She says that she misses me so much and that she will be a better person again. I fell for those words. Not until a friend of hers messaged me again saying that the past few days, when we got into a fight, she was rather very close in school to someone and they wondered what's up. Them being close to the guy, the one she was close with, and mind you this was yet another guy, messaged the guy and asked if something was up with them. They then showed me the conversation with the guy as well as a picture of him with Chi together in a cafe near the school. The picture really got me upset, but the conversation was even more concerning. Apparently the guy confessed to Chi and Chi actually gave the guy permission to court her, while we are still in a relationship. Having those evidences in my hand, I decided to confront Chi and never told her friend, to see if what they provide me was also true and that to see if they are really doing this out of concern or not. We got into another big fight and she argued that she did that because she thought I don't love her anymore, which is unreasonable as I never really said we should break up. But even so, we had a fight and she was already allowing someone to talk to her like that and court her. She then talked to me about how I was at fault and that if I never should have let her go, she wouldn't have talked to that guy in the first place. Yes, a manipulation and projection at play here. But I'm an idiot how I still have my rose-tinted glasses and was still so in love with her, so I took it and forgave her again for another time and continued our relationship. As time went on I really started to feel as if I'm just being used. I got a lot of advice from teachers who I don't even vent out my feelings to them anyway, but they do see what Chi was really doing in my absence. They are concerned, but I just dismissed everything because, well, I was still in love. She fights with my classmates just because I was asked to collect payments for an upcoming event. She would ask me to block my relatives who would just ask me questions and didn't allow me to talk to them, virtually and personally. She even asked me to block my old friends, which they understood but let me off with a warning. I let myself be controlled by her under the context that we really just love each other. The more recent instance of micro-cheating was during their immersion. It was some sort of a mandatory thing in school how they will be deployed and experience firsthand the work environment related to their strand. Now many schools were in this immersion, so I expected her to meet few people there. Remember that until this time she still doesn't allow me to talk to other students in my school, monitor my account, and will fight me even if I just have a classmate asking for notes or the schedule, etc. I was eventually told once again by one of her friends about how she is close once again with a fellow student there. And sent a picture of them close together. When I went home and met her, I still didn't tell her. However, while we were together I checked her phone and there I saw a picture of Chi together with a guy. The same guy that her friend told me about before. Mind you that this was yet another guy, different from the previous guys. That's when I confronted her again. She said that it was just a friend from the immersion and that nothing was going on. I chose to believe her in the end, but I just expressed my feelings of how she didn't want me to talk to my classmates, let alone even take pictures with them, which she did. I told her how she breaks her own rules and expected me, who endured the difficult life in college of being isolated just because she told me to be okay with it. She said that it was just nothing, but I really felt hurt seeing how she was with a guy in those pictures. I was really hurt and really don't know how to react anymore. Because of all these my academic performance was also affected, but I was just doing these things for her. As usual I forgave her for the whole thing. She made me block the friend who told me, saying that that friend was just jealous of us. To which I did, and we continued our relationship. After our first year anniversary everything just went downhill. The final instance of cheating she did was when we were happily chatting and flirting with each other and she just suddenly stopped replying. Curious, I opened her account and there I saw her talking to another guy and having flirtatious conversation. Again, another guy, different from the guys before. And I just snapped. I confronted her about it. I was furious, I let out everything. I brought up breaking up with her as I can't do this anymore. Everything that happened in the past, all the pain I endured just came back and filled my heart with all sorts of emotions. It all boiled down to me asking for space and she agreed. Friday during that she was still begging me to not leave her. Friday night she stopped responding to my messages altogether, and Saturday morning she told me we should break up. I began moving on. I started by unblocking people, friends and relatives, on social media. It was not long until questions poured in about our relationship. But one thing really stuck to me. Her closest friend, which we will just call Joyce, told me everything. About how they wanted to tell me how she was just playing with me as she gets close to guys and how she was with anyone else. About how she will always play the victim whenever we fight. About how she will turn the story around, manipulate it in order for it to be more favorable to her. And most of all about how on Saturday, the day of our breakup, she brought someone home. And that someone was the guy she was chatting with. The day of our breakup and she was already having someone. Yet she accuses me of cheating. Of how cheating was the reason we broke up. But the real reason was her attitude, and I just can't do it anymore. Just today, I accidentally opened up her TikTok account as it was still logged in on my phone. I don't really use TikTok that much, but I just opened it to pass some time. There I saw a video she uploaded. It was about her boyfriend, The one she was chatting to. I felt dismayed. I felt heavy. Here I am being accused of cheating, from her posts, yet it is hard for me to move on. And there she is already with someone. I am no longer confident with myself. I feel like I am used to it. I let myself be manipulated, controlled. I loved her so much that I still forgave her after going through all that because I accepted her. Now I just came to the conclusion that she never really loved me, my very person. All she really wanted was the presence of someone. My presence. But even so, it doesn't have to be me. She just wanted the presence of someone, not who they are. If you enjoyed this video, please don't forget to give a like, share it with someone, and subscribe for more stories that inspire, provoke, and connect us. Thank you.